Hey everybody, it is Alexandra Hoerr with Optimum Joy, and I'm super excited to have Dr. Blessing here today. She's based out of Texas, actually, and the way that you and I met each other is I've been hosted on her podcast, which she was just telling me. She just finished her fourth season and 75th episode. So that is like a huge accomplishment. But I'm excited today to have you here, Dr. Blessing, because it's been something I've been thinking more about with my own mental health, but how basically our gut health, our digestive system, all the different stuff really corresponds to like our mental and emotional health. And really, it just has me thinking about like the mind body connection, generally speaking. And I'm sure you could say more about this than what I can, but you focus on like nutrition and digestive health and like coach people to be healthier in a lot of their choices and stuff like that. So I'm so excited to have you here and just talk about that mind body stuff, that gut health. I will say maybe at the front end, I'll say this at the back end too. If people are really interested in like your knowledge and expertise or the podcast or any like exciting things you have coming up in the future, probably the best way to find you is your Instagram handle, which is Dr. Blessing A. So DrBlessing, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. So, Dr. Blessing, where should we start in kind of how we think about how mental and emotional health really pairs with our body?
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Oh, gosh.
We should always start at the emotional aspect. So a lot of times we ignore the fact that our emotions were created. They're basically pieces of information that tell us something about what is going on, either in our environment, either after something has happened. It's just a piece of information. And we are supposed to deal with our emotions in the way that we fully experience them and then let them go. But as we know in our society, we tend to either suppress them or try to hide them with other types of things or addictions and things like that. And that's where the issues start. So again, the emotions they're just pieces of information, and the way that our brain communicates with let's say our heart or our digestive system is through three main systems. And what it does is it has a role because what happens is when you have, let's say you experience anger and you hold on to that, right? So what'll happen is your body is going to start producing hormones and chemicals. One of them, as we know, cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And what that'll do is, because the brain is very far away from our digestive system and our heart, it will communicate that through the different hormones and chemicals that are sent out and neurotransmitters. So we like to talk about it as positive and negative emotions, but I don't think it necessarily has to be that. I think it's more of the way that we perceive it and respond to it. So when you are happy, things are going well, you're joyful, and you have dopamine, those endorphins that will increase. So those will be secreted. For example, if you are a runner, that runner's high they talk about, that's because your body is usually you're in a happy state and you have exercised and those feel-good hormones are being produced for a large amount. That's the way the brain communicates to the body, hey, let those blood vessels dilate, which is just basically they get bigger, so there's more blood flow. So that's basically how the body communicates that's how the brain communicates with the rest of the organ systems in our body.
Mm-hmm. You know, that I love that you say that emotions are just information, because positive or negative, it's like that's a really neutral way to say it. And it kind of like if it's neutral, I think then I would imagine that the neuroscience behind it, the hormones that are released, are a little bit tied to our perception. Because if I correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm angry and I'm not okay with anger, then my body is going to be like something not okay is happening and maybe release cortisol as like a slight stress response, as well as other things in the midst of my perception of that emotion. Is that true or is that not true?
That is true.
Okay.
There, you can have two different people, let's say moms, because I have a lot of friends who are moms and they have a lot of stress. You can have two different moms, right? Let's say the school calls, when we were when they were in person school. The school calls and they say, hey, little Bobby has had an accident. So one mother could be like, okay, little Bobby, they would wait to get more information. Another mom will just completely lose it, right? So it's how you perceive that information. And that's why it's important for us to master our emotions and not allow our emotions to master us. Because once you can set that, you can fully experience your emotions, sit with them and release them. That really helps the way you perceive stress.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, we know that some places are in quarantine. So studies have shown that people who are lonely have a more severe perception to different stressors, doesn't matter how minor they are, than people who are around family. So yes, there is perception is one of the biggest things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's even, I was thinking today just on the movie of Inside Out, just randomly for a different part of my work, and just even thinking how in one moment we can have a lot going on, and even just like, I think it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but it even gets into like neurotransmitters and stuff like in the movie in a really subtle way that maybe people like you and I who are neuroscience junkies would maybe tune into. But just the fact that it's like, it's also not usually just one thing. It's a complex system. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that it's like, oh, our brain is actually pretty far from our other major intelligence systems in a way, like our digestive system, our heart circulatory system. So how even just it being far away and using its tool in a really complex system can kind of get off in a lot of different ways depending on stress, circumstances, isolation and loneliness, all these like kind of social emotional things we think about, or circumstantial things, how that actually directly impacts our body health is pretty fascinating.
It is extremely fascinating. And sometimes you don't really realize it until it happens to you. So there was a period of time where I was doing contract work, and I had one of those administrative companies that took care of all of your admin stuff. And for whatever reason, the scheduler thought that it was, when they scheduled my flights out, they were always really, really close together. So I'd finish an exam like at let's say 11:30, and the plane was leaving at 12:30. Mind you that I have to get from the office that I'm in to the airport, which is usually in a downtown area that's busy. And after a while of doing that, like I guess I thought it didn't affect me that much initially. But what happened is that I started developing acid reflux, and I don't have acid reflux. And I was having difficulty sleeping. I was just anxious all the time. And I was like, this is not normal. This is not me. So eventually I talked with the scheduler and I was like, this is not going to work. You're going to have to you're going to have to give me some padding, give me an hour or two. So I'm not running to the plane in the airport that's crowded.
Right.
And it was really ironic from what she said, because she said, oh, I thought you liked it that way. And I was just like, boundaries. So
No.
you're responsible for the boundaries that you set to protect your time, your energy, your emotion, and your mental well-being. And it took me being I won't say physically ill. I just had a few bouts of acid reflux, but it took a few sessions of that for me to be like, no, this is not going to work. Yeah. We need to change this, and I need more buffer time so that you're never at your best when you're stressed like that anyway.
No. And Dr. Blessing, you bring up like a really good point around, because hearing you hit on boundaries is like a really important key. I feel like I in my experience of working with people, sometimes they're like, I don't even know what boundary to set. But knowing that like our mental health is tied to our body systems, and our body systems give us sensations that give us information, because they're all tied together. I think probably a really practical thing for people to do is to literally tune into, like your acid reflux or any other like body sensation as a way to kind of get at emotions, to get at an experience, so that you can take that like awareness or that information, like you were saying, because emotions are information, and then make a boundary that would, positively feed back into your health cycle.
That's definitely what you have to do. So for example, one emotion that comes up that tells you that your boundary is being violated is resentment. Resentment is information. It tells you that someone is violating something or someone is doing something that is making you have that resentment. It's usually boundaries. It's always boundary related. And for example, someone's at work and they keep giving you more and more work and you're overwhelmed, but there are other people that can take that work. Again, that resentment is information. It tells you, look, something is not right here. And you are responsible for taking care of that, because no one knows you're resentful, or you may act out passively aggressively. But again, no one cares about your mental, emotional, and physical well-being more than you. And so that's one of the really extreme examples of how emotions are definitely information. Anger is one too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like too, just like encouraging people to at any point in whether it's I'm in tune with my emotion, I'm in tune with my body sensation, I'm in tune with my um just like any type of information. I can't think of another one to fit in there, but even, I was talking to a woman recently who it was something like it was she was talking about constipation as like a body symptom that she was having, and how her doctor was saying, well, actually this is probably impacting your anxiety and depression levels, because the way the body works is it basically gets rid of some of those extra hormones in your like in what you excrete. So if it sits in there long enough, your body would reabsorb, let's take like estrogen, it will reabsorb all that estrogen into your body when it was actually trying to get rid of it. So it's just like you can really come into the system at any with any piece of information and see how it affects it. It's not just one way or the other. It all is like super integrated.
It is, and people experience it very differently.
Mhm.
So with the constipation, so usually when people are, not always, but usually when people are constipated, they have had a lot of stress. And so now I'm going to go back to the different systems that
Yeah, please.
our hormones activate. So for example, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which we all know is fight or flight, and we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. And then the third one is called the enteric nervous system. Basically, the digestive system has its own nervous system.
Mhm.
And this is why people who are paralyzed are still able to break down and digest their food. Because that nervous system, what it does is it helps with the motility. So in the digestive system, you eat something, it goes through the stomach,
Mhm.
small intestine, but it's being pushed in by different muscle contractions so that the food gets down there, because it even works against gravity. So those muscles are always working. But if you are stressed, or if you're harboring emotions that you need to fully experience release, whether it's just an emotion that occurs in the present time, or something more chronic where you need to find a creative outlet, and you have to find out what that is for you. Some people like art, some people like exercise. Find out what works for you. But what will happen is when you activate the fight or flight response, which is what happens when you're chronically stressed, cortisol goes up, fight or flight. That's the fight or flight hormone. What will happen is this is telling your digestive system and then your brain, hey, we need to get away from a threat. So it doesn't matter what the threat is. Before, it used to be lions, bears. Now it's just stress at work, financial stressors, being isolated.
Mhm.
And so it's telling your digestive system, no, we're going to focus on getting away from this threat.
Mhm.
So when you're running from something, or your body is in that fight or flight system, you are not focused on digestion. So all the blood flow goes away from the digestive system, goes to your muscles, your brain, because what? It's trying to help you get away from a threat, even though that threat may be something like financial stress, the kids are sick, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So now, if you experience this and then you find a way to turn on rest and digest, your body is fine. The issue is, in our society, and especially now, people are not turning off. They're continuously watching the news. There's negative information everywhere, and now it's consistent. Some people are isolated. It doesn't stop, and then rest and digest never turns on. So all that blood flow has gone away from the digestive system. You're going to be constipated because rest and digest promotes peristalsis, which is that muscular movement of food through your digestive system and out where it's supposed to go. And so unfortunately, you do reabsorb those harmful hormones. Best thing is to turn on rest and digest. And there is a simple, free, affordable way to do that. Diaphragmatic breathing, basically breathing from your diaphragm, those deep breaths. That is the cheapest way. You can do it at work. That's one of the cheapest way to turn that off.
And if someone was, when you say diaphragmatic breathing, we always just call it deep breathing. So, I like your science word for it. If I ever need to sound more smart than I am, I'm going to use that word. But if someone can you just quickly kind of walk through what that is for people? Like, how can they start to do that and what that is besides just Googling it,
So basically, a lot of us are shallow breathers. We breathe with our accessory muscles. What you need to do is when you're breathing in, you put your hand on your stomach, you take a deep breath in. So most of us like to hold our stomach in. That's not doing anything for your diaphragm at all. So when you breathe in, your stomach should go out. And then when you take that when you breathe in, the stomach goes out. And then when you take that breath out, then it goes back in. So what you can do is actually put your hand on your stomach and then on your chest, and then you can monitor that. And then they have videos and things that show you how to do that, since I'm not really in the position to show you.
Absolutely. When I was first learning to do that, actually, I first learned to do it as just kind of sitting here, but when I used to be a play therapist with kids and to teach them, I feel like this actually is the greatest way to also teach adults, is just to lay on the floor, and whether it's your hand or even putting a couch pillow or something on top of your stomach, because less muscles are contracted than when you're standing, and you can literally see that the rise and the fall of your belly when you're laying on the floor. So it changed those kiddos honestly changed my own personal art. I already had that knowledge of breathing, and those kiddos, they taught me more in some of those sessions than even I probably realized. But yeah. So, I hear you've kind of hit on this time and time again about the boundaries, even what you were saying about news is always on. We're always stimulated. Our system is always activated. So it even made me think again, well, that's an opportunity to set a boundary. Besides just breathing throughout your day is a cheap way to do it, but to also set a boundary around your rest and digest time, time that would be more restorative, generally speaking.
That's true. And people can do other things. Just find things that are relaxing for you. Some people will journal to get the things off their mind. I would say turn off the TV, but I know that a lot of people, since they're isolated, that it may be a little bit challenging. But again, setting that boundary to protect your mental and emotional health, which will always protect your physical health, is very important. You have to say no. Watch things that are uplifting, that are not bringing you down all the time. A sign you need to set boundaries is if you're more anxious when you watch it, or if you're more anxious when you're in the presence of certain people. That's that information again. It's your body telling you, this is making me upset. You have to do something about it. And that's how the body talks to us. You don't want the check engine light, which is burnout, to come on before you address it.
Yeah, no. Once you reach burnout, you've really it's not only a check engine light, it's like a red check engine light, that's flashing on your system. It's like you've gone too far on it. So what if people are really kind of interested in tuning into their mind-body connection, working on their gut health as a way to care for their mental and emotional health? What are some besides the deep breathing, what's some ways that you would recommend people just start to practice some of this in their life?
Well, one thing is is eating a lot of fiber rich foods. So a lot of times we kind of ignore the microbiome because we're like, oh, it doesn't matter. But we know that a lot of studies have come up saying of the importance of the microbiome. I've seen a lot of diets like the keto diet and some of these other diets that come up. And my main thing is that when you're picking a diet, make sure that you modify it, because a lot of these diets do not give the beneficial bacteria in your gut the nutrients that they need to do their work. So in your microbiome, you have what we call the beneficial bacteria, and then you have the opportunistic or the harmful or what they call bad. They're not really bad. It's just that some of them can turn on inflammation if you wipe out all of your beneficial ones. So there's a fragile balance there. And when you are making sure you're eating fiber-rich foods, this feeds your gut microbiome and makes it more diverse, which is very important, especially if you are someone that has had antibiotic treatment, because that wipes out all of them. And so that wipes out the beneficial ones and then leaves the harmful ones that are more prone to cause inflammation. So with that, making sure that you're staying hydrated, making sure that you're eating a variety of different fiber-rich foods. Some of us think that, oh, if we just eat spinach all the time, that's feeding just one subset of bacteria, and you want to diversify it. So in the microbiome, in the digestive system, diversify, diversify, diversify. Exercise is also another really great way to diversify the bacteria in your digestive system. It also lowers cortisol levels and increases those feel-good hormones, which the beneficial bacteria love. Now, one point in regards to the beneficial and the harmful bacteria is your diet plays a big role. And so if you feed your beneficial bacteria, they'll protect you. They help with metabolism, but they also produce neurotransmitters and hormones that are found and also produced in the brain. So this is why it's really important, because I'll talk with people and they're like, well, it doesn't matter. Oh, it does. So if your microbiome is secreting the same neurotransmitters that the brain is secreting, that is really important. And some of the inflammatory ones will produce certain neurotransmitters that are increase inflammation in the gut and in the brain. And we know that inflammation is not good. No. So this inflammation actually increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and a variety of other different mental health issues.
You know that I historically have done a lot of trauma work, and when we talk about intuition and intuitive, kind of that gut centered, well, what does your gut tell you? Which is really important, I think, for mental and emotional health generally, but then also kind of with trauma, you get away from what is my gut telling me. You know, it's harder to trust your internal intuitive system. But just kind of in some of that work, they talk all the time about your gut is almost like your second brain, because it's one of the largest concentration of nerve endings. And I did not know, Dr. Blessing, that your gut, I just thought that nerve ending, it's like receiving information, but I did not know that it releases neurotransmitters and like releases information as well. And that not only collects information to give to your brain, that they are actually impacting one another too. I didn't realize that reverse order in all of that.
Yes, the digestive system communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve, and it's always communicating. So people will say, I have this sinking feeling. Well, that was some communication. Your brain sent some information down to your digestive system, your digestive system sent it back up. So it's a very complex system, but it's simple in the way that you can manage it or try to be in control of which system you turn on. Now, some people may think, oh, I have to control it all the time. No, the body is pretty resilient. And so the body can do well with shorter periods of stress. It's when it becomes outrageous, longer periods of stress, so chronic stress. And what will happen is this can even lead to depletion of some of those neurotransmitters that you need. So for example, one is GABA, which is GABA aminobutyric acid. And so when you have low levels of GABA, it's one of those inhibitory, I think it's a peptide. You can check it out, but I think it's a peptide. And when it's released, right, what it does is it helps calm you. So we know when you're stressed, you're not calm. But when you're chronically stressed, it can deplete GABA. And so now because you don't have that inhibitory, which is just like calming effect, you're very anxious, you're stressed, you're just going. And so this happens with some of the other neurotransmitters, for example, melatonin. So if cortisol is high, melatonin is low. And so they have a relationship where when melatonin levels are higher, which is at night, towards the evening and at night. And then cortisol levels are high in the morning, and then, melatonin decreases. So when your cortisol levels are always high, you're not secreting melatonin, and melatonin, for the most part, helps you sleep. It helps you wind down, because there have been some studies that have shown some other things, but it helps you wind down, and the gut bacteria secrete that too. So
that's honestly, I personally am learning a lot from you, Dr. Blessing. So, I heard you say like exercise, diet, deep breathing, boundaries as all ways that are pretty affordable, um, kind of not easy solutions, but like the entry point is accessible. That as we're looking to kind of improve our mental and emotional health and just like the health of our life, that those are really kind of accessible entry points into doing this. Is there anything else that you feel like you would want to touch on with people just around like how our mental health and our gut health are intertwined together?
I'll touch on two other ways that you can kind of, two other entry points into really managing your mental, emotional health and affecting your digestive health. So going outside, being outside in nature has a therapeutic effect, and there are hundreds of studies. And so in this time when everyone is staying in, go outside.
Yeah.
You don't have to run. You don't have to do anything. Just go outside, sit in the sun. We know that if you're out and you're in the sun, for the most part, your vitamin D can be replenished through the sunlight, hitting your skin for most people. So getting outside, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just get outside. Also, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say when the shutdown happened around COVID, all of a sudden I found myself with extra time because I wasn't commuting and just a few different things. And that was the thing that really helped a lot of my sanity, was to leave my house for about an hour and a half every day at some point in time and just walk. And I wouldn't even listen or think about things. Well, I probably am always thinking about things, so let's be honest. But it wasn't even like I was actively inputting music or podcasts. It was just kind of a way to be, and in Chicago, there's not a lot of, there's some nature. It's a Chicago thing we complain about. It's whatever. We don't have to get into that. But a lot of my life, I feel like, improved because I was taking just basically a long stroll every day. Sometimes I would have a lot of time at the end of the day. I was like, well, I might as well go for another stroll. But so I hear what you're saying, that it's like even just sitting outside helps, but even just like a gentle walk, people don't have to like kill themselves in trying to improve their stuff. But I interrupted you. You were about to say something else. So
I forgot the second one now,
but
It's okay. I was like, wait a minute, what is it again? But no, exercise, even if it's just, exercise is good, being in nature. Also, plants are therapeutic. A lot of studies have shown that people gardeners, their cortisol levels just go down. Yeah, plants are therapeutic in addition to, helping clear up the air of toxins and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I interrupted you and you lost your second point. If it comes back to you,
I'll give it to you if it comes back. I'm trying to work on it. I'm like, where was it?
Well, honestly, this has been super helpful. I think that this, as we think about, it's important to you, I know, and it's important to me in the practice that I work in Chicago, to really think about our health as holistic. That we are, we're relational, we are, emotional, we're physical, we're spiritual, that we're a really kind of holistic being. So it's really important to me to just like talk with providers like you who do something different than providers like me, so that people can just like continue to improve their overall sense of health from any point, from any access point. So I just really appreciate what you do. I know Texas is lucky to have you down there, just like helping, I know you work with a lot of women and stuff like that, but I just appreciate you taking the time to come on here. So, and again, if people wanted to get in touch with you or figure out, like read some of the stuff you've written or listen to your podcast, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
On Instagram, my handle is @drblessinga.
All right, perfect. And
I remember the second one now.
Yes.
Sleep.
Okay.
So sleep is really important. A lot of people, especially when you're very stressed, you find it very difficult to sleep. But Our body needs sleep. It is a biological requirement. And if you don't sleep for a while, it will just force it upon you. So it's really important to sleep. I know some people say they have difficulty sleeping, but coming up with a wind down routine, whether you're adding, lavender, the essential oils, some people do better with music, some people do better with journaling, whatever it is, just make sure you have no electronics in your room at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, cut out caffeine at least 5 hours, and try to practice and try to come up with things that you can do so that you trigger your brain to think, okay, hey, it's time for me to wind down.
Yeah.
Once you do it enough times, because it takes time. A lot of times we think, oh, just snap. This is all a process and it's all difficult, especially when, things are not stable around you. But using those essential oils and then either reading, on an actual book, not on your electronics. Some people will try magnesium, like natural calm magnesium. There are different types of magnesium you can try.
Mm-hmm.
You can just go to your Whole Foods, Sprouts, whatever your natural food store is, just get a small thing, try it out. Most of the people, when I had my chiropractic practice, I gave that to them and they're like, oh, my muscle pain, my muscle spasms went away and I slept like a baby. I was like, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to, put as many tools as you can in your toolkit. I know some people talk about supplements, but I always try to get people to master your diet first. Make sure you're properly hydrated. Make sure you're mixing up those vegetables, grains. If you have allergies, you have to, tailor it to your needs. Diet first, because the microbiome responds a lot quicker to your diet. And if you need extra, go to a preferably functional medicine MD, and they are extremely holistic and they will be able to help you incorporate this and they'll tailor it to your needs. So I know some people have to take anxiety meds. Do what you have to do, but find someone who can help you process that and make sure you're not having any interactions with your medications.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I'm so glad you hit on sleep. And I personally take magnesium before I go to bed, and it has greatly calms my mind, and I sleep deeply mostly through the night without waking up, which is important for me too, just because I'm a pretty energetic person. So it kind of, I personally, I should implement a wind down routine, but just even something like that, obviously everybody needs to try it for their own body, but I just in the last 3 or 4 months have implemented that, and it's really kind of, I think, touched on a lot of different points of my own health. So, and sleep is my hobby. Sleep is one of the most, there's a book out there, it's called Why We Sleep, I'm pretty sure, and he talks about the science behind, um it's kind of sad and depressing if you haven't taken care of your sleep, but I will say it's an important book to read. So all
And
right.
sleep is when you restore all of those neurotransmitters and hormones. I
Yep.
mean, they have to replenish.
Yep.
And you can only do it when you're sleeping. Your brain is active, but it's flushing out toxins, replenishing those neurotransmitters, hormones, chemicals that they secrete. And if you don't replenish them, it'll start to affect you and your behavior, your anxiety, things like that.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I feel like we could probably keep adding things to this more and more and more, because it's definitely something that I'm learning more about. You're obviously more of an expert in it and stuff, but thank you so much for just taking time. It's really good to see you. It's really good to talk with you. And hopefully we'll have you on here again soon. So
Thank you for having me, Alex. I really appreciate it. And it's good to see you again.
bye, Dr. Blessing. See ya.
Bye.